Today on Independent Wrestling Profiles, we're talking with Wanda Delrey. I love to start at the very beginning because I think it's a necessary first step. If you became a wrestler, you probably started as a wrestling fan. So when did the wrestling industry first enter Wanda's life?
I'll say I'm still very much a wrestling fan for sure, even though now I'm a wrestler. But yeah, I guess just watching with my little brother, and he was really into it, and I didn't understand at first. But the beautiful thing about pro wrestling is that there's something for everybody. So I just sat down and watched an episode of Raw with him, and I saw the things that he enjoyed and that he was really going bananas for. And then there was things that really stood out to me. And I was like, who's this guy? What are they doing here? And then it would just be like a tradition. We would just watch every week. And then you get hooked. And that's it.
Was it an immediate thing? Was it that first episode you were hooked? Or was it I'm going to watch it with him a few times and a little by little over time, maybe you saw additional matches or additional performers and eventually it happened?
Yeah, there was definitely a period where you get more invested. I have to say, my mom telling me I couldn't watch it definitely made me want to watch it more. I was like, no, this is great. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. I'm going to pay twice as much attention and fall in love, twice as fast with this.
Okay, so I need to mimic the statement that you just made. And this is why you love it. What was it about it that hooked you? Was it perhaps just the presentation of it all? Was it specific performers? What was it that when you were watching it, you were like, okay, wait, no, I need to watch this again next week. I need to keep tuning in.
I think it was a combination of the athleticism and the whole over the top characters kind of thing. I remember seeing John Morrison, and I was like, this guy is really good. He's very athletic, Dare I say he may be more athletic than some people that I've seen earlier on the show. I wonder if he's going to get rewarded for his beautiful moonsaults. I have to know. I have to see where things are going to go for him. I want him to win, kind of thing. So you just pick somebody. You get behind them and you want to see them do well, and you keep tuning in.
So you would say he was maybe one of your early favorites?
Yes, I'd say so. Yeah.
Okay. Was there anybody else that really appeal to you in general?
Probably CM Punk, definitely. Be yeah, we should all listen to what he's saying. He's saying some good stuff. He's making sense.
Yeah, he's phenomenal on the mic, and sometimes it's even just you want to hate him, but it's no, what he's saying is pretty true. I can't really argue with that.
Yeah, and it's tough because you could tell this guy wants people to be upset with him. So if they're upset with him, he wins. He wins no matter what. He's got this figured out.
So where were you at in your life when you actually decided that you were going to take it from being just a viewer to actually participating in it?
Well, it was around 2020, and I had drafted emails to wrestling schools that I never sent, and then one day I clicked send on them. I was like, let's do this. Cause it always just seemed such a far-fetched idea, right? Until you get in that ring, it seems like it's a whole nother world, right? It seems so difficult and but my passion was just there, and it just it made me take that next step. And as soon as I stepped foot in that ring, that was it. There was no turning back. It was just, I knew this is what I wanted to do.
So take me through a little bit more about the first steps into the ring. You started into wrestling school, I would imagine. And how were those first days, first weeks? Did you find that there was anything particularly challenging that you weren't expecting? Were there any sort of elements to it that, hey, actually came kind of natural to you and you could kind of gravitate to until you further developed the other portions of it?
Nothing came natural to me. I gotta say, I mean, okay. I in my early, few weeks and months, I don't think I was the worst I've ever seen of new wrestlers coming in and training. I've seen worse, but I definitely had 2 left feet for sure. And it took me a little while longer to fit, really get some of the basics than other folks. But I just had that determination. That was just always there, and it never wavered.
Did you have any sort of like athletic background behind
No.
that? No, no. So this was a very fresh thing to be in a physically active like sport for this.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, I have like recreational, sports and things like that, but I've never really done anything like this. And I quickly learned that there's like very specific athletic skill sets that you need. So I just like, took that as homework, wrote that down, like made sure in the gym that I wasn't just training for, overall fitness, but like specific things that could help me where I was like falling short in training and keeping me safe and making sure that I could do all the cool things that I wanted to do. Yeah. I had to really like start from, not from scratch, but really just like open up a new notebook and just keep filling it up every day.
Does that include also like from a presentation standpoint? Did you do any sort of performance art or anything, or was it completely fresh from both a character and a physical standpoint?
I don't know if this counts, but I have a lot of experience like doing door-to-door sales.
Okay.
And in that, it's like you really have to, it's like a little mini character, Sure, you're trying to get somebody to purchase something that you have here, but really you're trying to like make yourself like likable, entertaining enough that the person, is going to like sign on even if they don't really want to, but they're like, yeah, I like this person. They did a good job. They were entertaining. Let's go kind of thing.
So a lot of the facets were new, but you weren't necessarily like an introvert. You at least had that kind of experience being a little bit more outgoing and putting yourself out there.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Okay. So why don't you take me through the process towards your first match? How long were you training? How did it feel maybe to kind of get the news that you were actually going to be performing? Like, how did that all come to be and how did you feel about it?
Maybe like 8 months or so into training. Had an opportunity to be in front of a crowd, and it was so exciting. Like I didn't sleep right the night before, and they always say like if your match ends up being like 10 minutes, when you're in the ring, it's going to feel like 3 minutes, and it was exactly that. It felt like I was in and out of there in no time, but I was very well prepared, which is great. Like credit to my training for sure. But that didn't help the nerves much. I was definitely like, I knew I was prepared, but I also like was so nervous. But I remember when I first got out there and I started working, like I had a match kind of like outside of my training program. And I was so nervous as well for that match. And it went so well. And I got to the back and everybody was, giving me, feedback and just, saying nice things. And I just kept thinking I didn't enjoy that at all because I was just so nervous while I was in there.
Okay.
And I just like committed to myself. I was like, okay, from now on, no more nerves because you worked so hard to get here. You deserve to enjoy being here in the moment, right? Because what's the point otherwise? You're just, nervous and then you go home and you're like, okay, no, not having fun. So I made that commitment to myself.
Do you still get nervous all the time, or is it kind of at the point where once you break the curtain, kind of the adrenaline takes over, the crowd kind of pushes you through, or does that kind of always still linger in the back of the mind?
I tried to make sure that when I step through the curtain, there's no nerves there. I mean, they get through sometimes, but not so much. Save it for the back.
And how did it feel to get the experience of a live crowd for that first time? I have to imagine that even if they're booing or cheering, that it's got to be like, it's not something everybody gets to experience in life, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. And you should enjoy it because it's so unique, right? That one of those early matches, they were cheering for me. I couldn't hear a thing. I couldn't hear the crowd at all,
No.
right? But now I hear them all the time. Every time they chant my name, it's like, it's a blessing, honestly. It's amazing. And they really do fire you up, right? Like the crowd reactions, whatever they may be. They're energizing.
So that's a lot of the in-match stuff, but going into it, did you ever have an idea or even kind of tinker with it prior in your mind to what sort of image you wanted to put forward, what kind of persona, like who you wanted people to think Wanda Delrey was when they saw you in a match?
Yeah, I definitely wanted them, like my wrestling name, like Delrey, is like borrowed from Sarah Delrey, who was
Okay.
a wrestler on the Independence, and I just loved like her presentation. Like when she comes out, she just seems like so confident, like really strong, kind of imposing, just like takes up the room kind of thing. And like she seems just like a wall, when she's in the ring, you can't like knock her down. I don't think that's like really what I'm going for in terms of in ring, but like it's that kind of like that confidence, right? To know that you're just like solid, that you're going to, you're going to have to work really hard if you want to put me down, right? Like, and that's going to be obvious from like my demeanor, my mannerisms, and the way that I present myself, like from the moment you get out of the curtain. Yeah.
Yeah, joking aside, I've seen you compete on a number of occasions, and it really is fantastic how much you can get the crowd behind you. I've heard some buildings just absolutely erupt with whatever you have going on. I've seen even slower periods and even gimmick spots. I saw you in a match with Take It Easy Joey where you guys were wearing hats and like the crowd was just eating out of your hands. Does it not fill you with like a sense of just accomplishment, I guess I would say, when you hear that people are that invested in what you're doing?
It really does. Like it shows that there's like some sort of like cachet and recognition in what you're doing. I remember even like months ago, I was, working with somebody in a kind of like a comedy spot, and the reaction of the crowd was them to start chanting, "Wanda's gonna kill you." And I was like, okay, like they get this, like they're behind me. So I love that no matter what it is. I was like, I did love that pink cowboy hat, and like the audience, they're like, and you should, Wanda, of course. You deserve that moment with your pink cowboy hat before you kick butt. And I was like, yeah, they get it. Like they understand this.
I'm fairly certain that that cowboy hat spot was one of the loudest moments in the building that night. And it was, for all intents and purposes, a bit more of a comedy bit. But then you guys backed it up with incredible in ring work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I do want to ask you, and this might be a little bit challenging to kind of narrow down, but within the span of your career thus far, what are some of the highlight moments that you've had, whether they be opponents that you didn't expect to be facing, matches that just blew you away, or even fan interactions that were just unexpectedly pleasant?
I think like within like the first year of working, I had like a 30-minute Ironman match. And I was like, okay, like I've never had a 30-minute match. Like, let's see how I fare. I was like really preparing for it. And then it turned out to be like 40 minutes because at the end of the 30 minutes, it was like still a draw. And I was like, oh, death, let's go. Right. So yeah, I was like really proud of that. And it was it was very different than other matches that I've worked. And I worked with like, it was a triple threat match with like two other people. And that was just really wonderful. I had, I think like I was a champion at the time, and I ended up like losing that championship at the end of the match. But the crowd was just like so excited to see like this other person have it. It's like hometown hero kind of thing. And yeah, like that's a moment that'll always stick with me for sure. And I've had some like wonderful matches with like amazing talent in Ontario. Like the women we have here are, and I want to say like here, but we're very kind of like spread out, not just like right here in the city, but as far as like Quebec or even Alberta, you bring them all in, and it's been wonderful to kind of like share the ring with these women for sure.
Okay, and I do want to touch on that because you have been a champion before. Can you recall back to the first time that you won a championship? What it felt like to get that 3 count, lift that belt, and kind of be given that adulation as a champion that can carry the company?
Yeah, it was a great feeling. I won a championship off of a masked luchador who was like quite a menace, and had been kind of like on my tail for quite a few months. And the crowd was like very eager to see me, get that belt, and I did, and I got the championship, and it was just. I remember the crowd noise there for sure. They were so excited, for that 3 count, as was I. Yeah, definitely another moment that'll stick with me, that first championship. Yeah.
And where would you like to see your career go next? Not necessarily like the end game, but even just the next thing you would like to check off the wrestling bucket list, whether it be a city you'd like to travel to that you haven't been to before, or a company that you haven't worked for yet.
Right now, my goal is to, work with people that have done this longer than me, work with people that, have like accomplished way more than I have, because it's the only way to really get better yourself, is to work with these folks and to learn from them. And I'll go wherever that may be. Sorry, that's
okay.
It's Texas. So yes, like keep working with people that are better than me and learning from them. yeah, it's wonderful right now, like the wrestling scene. Like there's so many great promotions out there, and you can meet people right here at home. Maybe like where you're training, right? They're running a show. You could work with, some of the best talent out there, or you could go and find a way to have an opportunity to work a match for something like MLP, right, or ROH, and you could work them there. But you never know where and when these opportunities are going to come up. So I'm just always like making sure that I'm in those spaces and like showing people that I'm like ready and willing and able to step up to that challenge.
Are there any destinations that you're hoping to get a match in, even if it's just for the excuse of getting to travel to that far away place?
Well, I'm going to Vancouver at the end of the month for a couple of matches, and I've never been to Vancouver, so I'm really excited about that. Yeah, it's like I just want to go like hug a giant tree. Like I don't know if I have time. I don't know if I have time to like go on a hike or something, but if I could just hug a giant tree, look at a mountain, I'd be so happy.
So I have to do the cliche thing and ask what every wrestling interviewer does, and ask who would be the dream opponent. Stick to who's actively competing now, not historic, but you don't have to justify how it would happen, make it realistic or anything like that. But if you could get in the ring with anybody, who would the dream opponent be?
I'd love to get in the ring with Charlotte Flair.
Okay.
Yes. And I mean, it would have to be big, right? It's Charlotte. She doesn't do anything else. Right? She's amazing. She's like near the top of my list of like favorite wrestlers. And she kicked my butt, but I'd learn so much, and I would, you know, I'd bring myself to a whole new level, I'm sure.
Any dream opponents that are kind of kicking around the independent scene right now?
Like within here, like we have some amazing talent. I had already one match with Jody Threat. I'd love to keep working with her. I would love just to see the difference between like match one and match two, right? Like that's where it is, right? That's what wrestling's about. Like tell that story, right? You meet once, you meet again. And there's just so many, like I said, like the beautiful thing about, with a company like AW is that like any of the women there can work anywhere, and they do, right? They're working independent shows all over the place. Yeah. So there's just, there's just like a wealth of people you could work. I'm excited.
Jody Threat is
Yeah.
phenomenal, like a barometer for what can be done in the Ontario independent scene. It'd be interesting to actually have a second match and just kind of go back and look at your improvement from one to the next. But not everybody gets that opportunity. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Who knows?
Mhm.
Let's step outside of the ring for a moment. You have an opportunity to recharge the batteries, get away from the wrestling ring for a little while. What kind of things do you like to do to pass the time?
Well, you met Texas briefly. He's my little guy, and I like playing with him. He's fun. He's just like he's so young, so he's just constantly like chewing on stuff. I like teaching him what not to do, what to do. He takes to like jumping on me randomly. Like he'll just climb right up. I'm like trying to get ready, and he'll just like jump up. Like, that's cute, but like, let's not do that. Yeah.
Is it mostly cats for you, or are you just a general animal person?
Oh, I love animals for sure, but I just don't have time for any other type of animal. Like cats are amazing because they're like pretty much like wild animals that decided to hang out with people. I heard that's like literally like in the UK, like if you have a dog and it bites like somebody, you can get in trouble as the owner. But
Okay.
if you have a cat, you can't get in trouble if it bites someone because they consider them like legally like wild animals that like domesticated themselves.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess if you are traveling and busy all the time, a
Yeah.
cat is a fairly self-sufficient animal for the most part. They don't need necessarily all of the same kind of attention as other animals. But there's nothing else that you like to do to just kind of relax and step away from it all?
Hang out with friends, see what they do. A lot of the things they like to do are also like, athletically involved or things like that. Like some of my friends like to do what's called like acro yoga, which is like a type of like it's kind of like a performance-based type thing where you have like two or more people and you do like moves where you're like balancing each other or creating like human-shaped formations, where, like people stand on your hands and you like create like a pyramid, type thing. Just pretty fun. Going like rock climbing or going to like those like gymnastics gyms and trying to, keep up with my friends who are like flipping around. Yeah, just anything to keep me moving, really. And luckily, there's just so much of that to do in the city. Like, we have so many cool like clubs and things like that, or even just going to the park and running around. Yeah, get me outdoors for sure.
Awesome. So just touching back onto the wrestling career then, I want to ask you, how did it come down to the decision to make your entrance music Girls Not Grey by AFI?
It was a very long process, right? So I was like looking at songs, went down a rabbit hole. It took days, right? Like this one, that one, this one. When I get obsessed, it's like, it's not fun. It's not fun. It's like, it has to be perfect, right? Because you're like, it has to be like within the first like 10 seconds. You have to have that like, ta-da, I'm here. And then it has to keep going. And there has to be like another spike when you get in the ring. So I was just listening to all the songs that existed. And that was the best one, I think.
So there wasn't any deep-seated meaning behind it. It was just, this one just felt right.
Yeah, for sure. It felt right. Felt right. And I mean, it doesn't hurt that it's off the same album as like CM Punk's like ROH entrance music. Like that's also cute. Like I'll take that.
So the last thing that I like to ask everybody is a little bit more of a surreal question and maybe not always the easiest to answer. But if you had an opportunity to go back and talk to a younger version of yourself who was just getting started into wrestling training, what piece of advice would you give yourself that could perhaps also carry over to somebody else who's maybe on the fence about doing it themselves?
Oh, that is a tough question, right?
It is,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's tough because like I believe that like everything happens as it's supposed to happen, right? Sure, maybe if I'd gone back in time, I would have been like, do it sooner, right? Like become more athletic when you're like 6 years old, so you can like you can grow into this, right? But yeah, everything happens for a reason for sure. And I think if anybody is interested in wrestling, dip your toe in if you can't, get through the door, talk to people about it. Like there's definitely a huge community out there. So if you're interested in it, talk to others who are doing, something that you are interested in that space, and you'll find a way for yourself, whether it's like what you end up doing in wrestling, maybe it won't be, but if it's something like just taking photos for a show, right? If you want to volunteer or like to help like set up a ring or hand out flyers, whatever it is, you can like make those connections and see what a show is like from start to finish. And then, I just believe everyone will figure out where they're meant to be eventually. Yeah.
If I could just piggyback off of that for a second, I think that that's fantastic advice because I've spoken to people who have started their wrestling career as referees, as podcasters, as interviewers. If you love the industry, just be around it and see if that's something that would fit for you.
Mm.
Before we sign out, can I just get you to please let everybody know again who you are and maybe where they can find you on social media if they want to drop you a follow and keep up to date with what you got going on?
For sure. So it's been fun chatting with you. It's Wanda Delrey, and please follow me. I like followers, and you can do so on Instagram at Wanda_wrestling. And then I'm also like pretty active on TikTok, like under the same like username. And yeah, I'd love your support. Just to say hi or to see what I'm up to. Yeah, there's like so much that I've like seen from like other fans that have followed me, just to say like I'm so excited for the show. And that honestly it gets me excited, right? If they're like, oh, at the end of the month, like I'm going to be there and I'm excited, I'm like, okay, I'm going to work so hard now. So like that support really does drive wrestlers for sure. So yeah, I'm very thankful.
All right. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to Independent Wrestling Profiles. Please help out the show if you can with a like, subscription, or review. We'll see you next time.